Hey everybody, you are watching Broke Rednecks Prepping. My name is Matt. What I want to talk to you today is about the Ideal Prepper firearm collection. Now, a lot of people, as I've started putting out these videos, have been asking me, even though we've done some on gardens and bug out locations, everybody wants to know what kind of guns they really ought to have. And I know a lot of prepper channels talk about this, so I'm going to give you my 2 cents and why I think you should probably go in the orders you should, and we're going to talk about 5 specific guns, types of guns really. And the method behind my madness, as I think about which firearms you'll want, is to start off with what are you most likely to use? Not just in a grid down or SHTF situation, but in general. What are you going to carry the most? What are you going to be able to practice with the most? Whether you live in the country or city, pretty much anywhere you are, the most common firearm you're ever going to use is going to be your handgun. Now, this is a Smith & Wesson MP 9mm Model 2. It's got a 5-inch barrel. It's got some things I like about it. It's very similar in feel and shooting style to the Glocks for those of y'all who are familiar with handguns. The difference is this has a safety. Now, you'll see in a lot of these firearm videos, guys want small, easily concealable handguns. There's a point to be made with that. I personally wanted something just a little bit bigger, something with a longer barrel that allowed me to reach out a little further, gave me more accuracy. I decided to go with a 9mm, even though I've carried a 40 cal in law enforcement and security. I decided to go with a 9mm for a couple reasons. One, ammunition's less expensive, so you can stockpile more of it. It's still a big enough caliber that you can use it effectively for self-defense. But at the same time, it's small enough that if you were in a grid down situation and had to hunt, you could actually use this for things like jackrabbits or raccoon or something in a crunch. It's also something, because it's a 9mm, it's a little more narrow in the profile, so you can conceal it. Maybe not as easy as some of the subcompacts, but you can conceal it. I also wanted something that was going to, when I was looking at handguns, that was also going to be big enough I could intimidate people. The problem with a lot of these little bitty guns is when you pull them out, people really can't see them. The one upside of this gun isn't loaded, but the upside of this is when you pick it up, people can see it in your hand. They know what you have. They know you're not faking them. After all, if we have to use one in self-defense, we don't necessarily want to have to shoot people, and sometimes scaring them away is good enough. But that's kind of the method of my madness here. Glock makes some good guns, so does Sig Sauer. I really like the Smith & Wessons. We started using a lot of those. But the first gun I would suggest any prepper get is a good, solid, reliable handgun. Something that's 9mm or bigger, maybe less than a 45, that they can practice with, that they're comfortable gripping. Don't be afraid to put the grips you want on it or something like that. That they can afford to practice with. That's a big thing. Ammo is expensive, and so is shooting ranges. But also something they can stockpile a little ammunition with. If you're preparing for a grid down situation, and an extra 20 rounds really isn't going to cut it. You want to have enough that you're prepared for a while. And so as a result, I went with this particular model, the Smith & Wesson M&P 9mm. But if you want to go with something else, that's fine. Just make sure it's something you're comfortable with. The next gun I would recommend, and I'm kind of going in order of both cost to a new gun buyer, how quickly you could build a proficiency, but also how practically you could use such a thing in a grid down situation. The next gun I'd actually go with is a good solid .22 rifle. This particular one is my niece's rifle. It's a Savage, model 64 I think. And I kind of picked this because it was the least expensive we had. It's a .22, it's magazine fed or clip fed, goes in the bottom. I think this holds 10 rounds. It's got a decent little 9-power scope on it. Good black fiberglass stock. It's really, really light. Travis, do you know how much this thing weighs? I think it's 2 or 3 pounds.
I would say no more than 5.
I don't even think it's that much. And that was a consideration. She's not very big. The .22 I like has a little longer barrel. But for a new shooter, this is something you can find a lot of places to practice with. I think she spent $149 on this, brand new with a scope. .22 caliber ammunition is inexpensive compared to all the rest. You can stockpile a lot of it. The bullets are small, so you can carry a lot with you. I wouldn't go deer hunting with this, but in a grid down situation, you're not going to be doing a lot of deer hunting. Why waste the meat? You're not going to be able to preserve it. So, unless you're canning or something, but that's not always going to be practical. A 22 doesn't make a lot of noise comparatively. You can put a lot of rounds through it and get really good with it. Doesn't cost a lot. The ammo doesn't cost a lot. And it's something that anybody can shoot. I mean, I was shooting 22s at 10 or 11. Anybody can pick this up and with a little practice get good with it. And that's very important because the number one rule with any gun, know how to use it and get good with it. The next thing I would go for a new shooter, and the biggest argument here is cost. And that's a good pump shotgun. Now, I went back and forth between that and something like the M4 style or an AR platform. The reason I decided on the pump shotgun for a new shooter or a new prepper who's building a collection is largely cost and your ability to make more mistakes with it. See, a pump shotgun is a little heavier, but it's intimidating. From a home defense or self-defense standpoint, everybody on the face of the earth knows what that sound is, and they know they want no part of it. Now, this is Travis's shotgun. It's a 20 gauge. I have some 12 gauges. He has a 20. We have a myriad of them. But I would actually recommend people go with a good 20 gauge pump shotgun. If you're a bigger guy and you can carry the extra weight of the ammo or just want a bigger one, 12 is fine. But a 20 gauge is good for what we would call varmint hunting. Think rabbits, possums, that sort of thing. However, even birdshot from a 22 at close range will cut a person in half. At 50, 60 yards, it's not really dangerous to them, but at the distance you might have to defend yourself in a house or something like this. This will kill anybody on earth. And they're not very expensive. I bought this as a graduation present for Travis, and it was about $200. Bought it at a pawn shop used in great condition. It's a Mossberg. You can, if you go to any pawn shop, especially in the summertime when you're not in hunting season, you're not going to have a hard time finding a good, solid shotgun. Shotgun ammunition also isn't terribly expensive. Shotgun ammunition tends to come out in spread. Unless you're using a slug, which is a single projectile, birdshot has like 120 pellets. Duck shot has 90 or whatever, depending on which brand you use. But the upside to it is it goes out in kind of a cone. So the further you're reaching out, the wider your margin of error. And for a new shooter, that's very important. It also, if you are using slugs with a longer barrel, gives you a decent range and a giant bullet going downhill. So this is something that every prepper could use effectively. It's also something that does not cost a lot of money to get into. Like I say, a couple $100 for this one. Now, if you have a bug out location somewhere in the woods, and if you're off in, I don't know, a canyon somewhere or something like that, we're out in West Texas, so there's a lot of wide open spaces. If you're going to bug in an urban environment, you may want to skip the hunting rifle I'm going to go to next to go straight to more of a tactical rifle. Now, the next one I would go with is a good hunting rifle. This particular one is a Remington Model 700 270. Yes, I know everybody's going to tell you need a 30-06 or a 300 Magnum or something like that. There's an argument for those depending on what you're shooting at. But the upside to a good hunting rifle is if you have the ability to hunt something like deer, slightly larger game, feral hogs. I would guess in a grid down situation, we're going to see a lot of feral hogs. Or if you need more of a sniper type rifle. Unless you went through Marine sniper school, you probably aren't going to be reaching out 1,000 yards. 500 would max it. I like the 270 because the ammo is a little less expensive. It's easier to get a hold of because everybody's wanting to get the 30-06. It's also a little lighter to carry. That's important. You can carry more rounds of ammunition with you. Now, you can get these used at a pawn shop for usually about $250. You can buy them brand new at Academy or somewhere, anywhere from $350 to $500. If you look at some stores like Academy or Cabela's right after Thanksgiving, you're going to find a whole lot of them in the $300 range. You can get them, mine is a Woodstock, because I like the Woodstock. Travis has the exact same model, but his is black fiberglass. It's a stock similar to the stock that's on this one, this part. Now, I got that for him as a birthday present, I believe. And it was a little lighter, easier for him to carry. The girls like that a lot. They like the lack of weight that goes into it. But I would consider a good solid larger game / sniper rifle. With a 270, you can reach out several hundred yards and have lethal impact with the bullet. And if you want to go with a 30-06, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, or go with larger caliber. but I would get something 270 or better. That way you can hunt pretty much any game in North America. It's lethal for a defensive situation. And you can get a little better scope on it and reach out further. Now, the last firearm I'm going to talk about is a tactical rifle of some sort. This particular rifle is an M4. Now, it's set up basically on the AR platform, Armalite rifle. You've probably heard a lot about them in the news. You can get 30 round magazines for this. With a little bit of training, anybody can get quite proficient. They don't weigh a lot. The ammunition is fairly light comparatively. 223, if you ever look at them in the store, is a lot smaller than say 270 or 30-06. They're also a little smaller. Anybody can tuck one of these in. But even if it's somebody that's smaller, a kid or a small female that needs to shorten the rifle up, you can get them with the extendable stocks. They come standard, shorten it up or a little more. Too small for me, but tends to work for people. Now, this fires a 223 caliber round. I would not at long ranges go deer hunting with that, but if you're going to try to shoot some mid-sized game like that, or even deer, if you're accurate enough, you can kill a deer with it. You better hit them in the right spot. This would be a solid gun for you. It's also, compared to the other rifles, a little more concealable. You can hide it in a backpack. Compare the height to this broken down to 270. You can tell there's nearly a foot difference between them. It's also a little lighter, which is very important. If you're in a grid down situation, having to walk long distances, that weight's going to get important. So being able to have some extra magazines with a lot more ammunition in them that don't weigh as much as, say, I don't know, the Kalashnikov style rounds or something like that's very important. Also, the 223 is the most common tactical weapon. Everybody in the military, police, all that are going to have them. So you'd probably be able to barter for some ammo. You're going to find them in any outdoor store. And they're just a good, solid, effective gun that allow, unlike a pistol, you can go out a little further with them and defend yourself at a little more range. And that's worth a lot in a grid down situation. Anyway, that is the 5 guns that I would look at. And the biggest reason I save this one for last is because the cost. One of these is going to run you anywhere from $800 to $1,200. Probably not counting the scope. This one has a red dot scope, or the sling, or some of the other add-ons you might like. You may want a foregrip or something like that, and that's fine. But because it's the most expensive, you'd probably save it till last. Now, as I said, that's 5 guns I think every prepper should have. A lot of people will disagree with me on this, but I'm going to add another weapon to this discussion. And it is this. It's a bow and arrow. Or, well, a bow. The arrows are separate. Now, this is my bow. I go bow hunting periodically. That's not to allege that I'm any good at it, but I do enjoy it. Now, a lot of people think that I'm crazy for adding a bow to a discussion like this. The one big reason I do so, well, there's 2 big reasons I do so. The first is because you can reuse arrows as a rule. Once you fire a bullet, it's gone. If you shoot a bunny rabbit with an arrow, you can go pull the arrow out and use it again. Now, this one has about a 55-pound draw on it. It's a 27-inch bow. I bought this at a pawn shop for $100, and that was 4 or 5 years ago, and we've been using them since. So you can drop a deer with this. Usually it ranges under 50 yards. You can practice with it all you want. On the upside, it's a bow. If you've got, it's not a firearm, so if you've got a decent-sized backyard with a styrofoam target, you can practice in an urban environment. You can practice in an alley. You don't have to go pay money for a range to shoot one of these a lot of times. Now, they're inexpensive. Another huge upside to me on this for a grid down situation is that a bow is silent. I mean, think about this. If you're, I don't know, in your bug out location or trying to get to it and you need to, shoot something for dinner to add to the pot there, well, if you shoot any one of these guns, somebody's going to hear it a ways off. And when they hear a gunshot, they know that somebody there has a gun. They probably have supplies. They may have shot something to eat. The upside to this bow is it doesn't make any noise at all. It can, with the right barrel heads, be lethal to people. I wouldn't necessarily want to use it for self-defense unless you're that elf from Lord of the Rings, but I'd just be happy having his hair. But it is a good, solid hunting weapon you can use. The arrows and the bows are not terribly expensive if you buy them used. If you go look in a store, they're going to be expensive, but go hit a pawn shop, you'll get a good working one fairly cheap. You can buy the arrows at Walmart for $4 or $5 a piece. I mean, for $50, you can have enough arrows to ride out the zombie apocalypse. I mean, the dude on the motorcycle with his crossbow hadn't had to buy new arrows in what, 7 seasons? Anyway, you may want to think about getting one of these, and it's something you can practice with easily, and something you can hunt with. Anyway, guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Do like and subscribe. That really helps out a lot. Comment, let us know what you think, get in the discussion. Anyway, there's 5 guns and a bonus weapon that I think every prepper should have in their collection. If you agree, disagree, shoot me a comment. Let's get a discussion started. And we will see you next time.